This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle.
I'm kind of embarrassed because I haven't read any of the classic books, and I'm afraid today, Igor, that I might cramp your style. So I hope you'll let me come along with you and the list builders on this journey.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
So, all right. That's my opening, actually, suckers. But here, Igor, what do you have in store for us today? Because I kind of gave it away.
Oh, okay. Wait, we're recording? Shit, okay. Okay, well, today's episode is going to be all about books. And if you hate reading, you should not listen to it. But if you want to get rich, if you want to make millions, then you should definitely pay attention, because one thing we've established is that millionaires are avid readers. It's just a given. I don't know anyone who became successful, who stepped out of poverty and became great, that just ain't always constantly reading. I mean, one of the questions that Donald Trump asks when you meet him in a seminar is, what are the 3 books you're reading right now? That tells you something, right?
Yeah.
That tells you something.
What really gave it away for me, and this is a guilty pleasure, every once in a while I'll watch some of those shows where they have like the old estates and mansions and the homes of million and billionaires. And what really drove it home for me was that in those giant homes, almost every single one always had a large library.
Yeah. And but they never show them reading. Right. It basically implies, look how many books you got to read before you can become a millionaire.
Yeah, there's a standard. But yeah, I agree, man. I love to read. And even though I haven't read some of the classics, I do thoroughly enjoy reading. So I'm looking forward to this list.
So this list, we're going to give you 7 books in this episode. And it's not every single book is about money. And not every single book is about, success. However, each and every single one relates to helping you mold yourself into the kind of person that you need to become in order to be a millionaire. We already spoke about this many times where, we share that you have to not strive to make $1 million, but you have to strive to become a person that is worth $1 million. Okay, so become that person, and that's what these books are all about. So the first one I recommend, and that's basically it's a classic. It sold more copies than the Bible, and it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Have you read that one, Jonathan?
I actually have read that one.
So you can testify to how amazing that book is. It's one of the first self-help books I've ever read, and it just, I was never a social person. I was actually antisocial, and I was really like a poor communicator before I read this book, and it gave me some rules and guidelines on how to become somebody who's able to quickly connect with a stranger and create a great impression of himself, right? How to connect with people, how to win friends. The title is just exactly what it is. It's how to win friends and influence other people through just proper, ethical communication. No dirty tricks, no nothing, just proper communication. And, if you find yourself struggling with that, if you find yourself struggling to create connections, then you absolutely have to check this out. Very easy read. And tremendous. I read this 3 times now over the span of the last 10 years. It's just a great pleasure to kind of refresh my memory every time. And it's full of tools and tricks that assist you at becoming a great communicator on a very basic level. No complicated stuff. No mind games, no tricks, no manipulation tactics, no nothing. Just proper communication. Just the way you're supposed to communicate, really, because most people, they can't communicate. Just the other day, I was so upset about my mother, Jonathan. She can say something insignificant, but she can say it in such a way that really fucking hurts. And because she's my mom, I can't really lash out at her, and I have to kind of keep myself in check. But it could get so frustrating just talking to her. And you want to be the opposite of that if you are to become an influencer, right? You want to become a person that people enjoy communicating with, and that just by communicating with you, they feel better about themselves.
Yeah, man.
So the second one is No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. Now, this book is big, especially for people who come out of the big families, because the one thing that you learn when you grow up in a household with lots of family members, that selfish is bad. That, taking the first bite of the pie is a bad thing. I remember when I was a kid, we used to visit my grandmother every now and again in Russia. So it would be like a 12-hour drive from Ukraine. And we would come and stay there for like a month. And so obviously, when we come over, my grandma made sure she stocked up on on candy. I was a chubby kid and I loved candy. So anyway, there was a last piece of candy left one time, and I took it. And my aunt saw me take it, and just before I was about to eat it, she said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm eating candy." She's like, "But that's the last candy. I saw it's the last candy." She's like, I'm like, "Yeah. That's when I eat it because it's the last one." She said, "Did you ask anyone else if they want it?" What? In my mind, I'm thinking, why the hell would I do that? Right? But
I might eat it.
Yeah. But to her, I say no. And she said, and she was really angry with me about it. Basically, that was the first time that I learned that being selfish is really, really bad. And from that point forward, growing up in a post-Soviet household, you're being taught to think and care about other people more than you think and care about yourself, which ain't such a bad thing. But a lot of people take it to the extreme and start living their life for other people. And they put themselves on the back burner all the time. As a result, lots of issues develop, Jonathan. Lots and lots of personal issues develop, and people end up, spending lots of money on therapy and take pills and stuff like that. So no more Mr. Nice Guy. It's not just for guys, it's for women as well. It's for anyone who finds themselves that they're always the last. They're always getting the bad deal. They're always they're not getting what they want out of life. And I assure you, that's just a result of your habits, of the habit of putting yourself last. So, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I highly recommend it. If you are to become a millionaire, you want to read it ASAP, because you can't be a millionaire. You can become a person of value. You can become an influencer. You can't become successful unless you put yourself first to some degree and demand what you think you're worth out of life rather than waiting for something to happen.
I want to take you on a side story. We were looking for, we're looking for daycares because our child needs to socialize a little instead of just hanging out with us. But we went to this place the other day, Igor, and I liked it. They had a good curriculum, they had languages, they had culture. I was really digging it. And then the director tells us this story about, we have different months, and this month we're doing the sharing is caring, and it's better to give than it is to receive. And right then I was like, I don't like this place anymore. Because better than give to receive is a poor person's mentality, in my opinion. And maybe that makes me a jerk, but if you don't have enough, then how can you give? And exactly. So it's kind of interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's, in an airplane, when they do the whole safety movie or whatever, right? You're told that you should put your own mask first and put, whoever you're assisting, you put their mask on second.
Yeah.
Because if you suffocate while you put their mask on, that you didn't help yourself or them. So that is exactly why No More Mr. Nice Guy is such a valuable book, and anyone who is, well, for the lack of a better term, thinks of themselves as a loser. If you have a self-image of a loser, you absolutely need to read that book. Now, the next one is all about selling. It's all about putting selling in perspective for yourself. Is all about developing a great relationship with the skill set, because oftentimes it is being misinterpreted as, a sleazeball sort of thing, right? So the book's called The Secret of Selling Anything by Harry Brown. And what it does, it shows you how to sell in an ethical way and generate so much goodwill doing it that you'd be stupid not to sell. I really don't need to, quote unquote, sell this book to you because, you need it. You trust me on this one. Just trust my word on this. You need this book if you are to do anything with selling. Now, the next one is Influence, Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And just like you mentioned, GR, before we started this call, it is everywhere. It's been recommended pretty much by every single resource out there as the Bible for people who want to influence other people, who want to sell something, who want to create a following of some sort. And it is. It is a great book. It describes the 6 principles we gotta use in order to convince other people to basically comply with our will, and do it in a fairly ethical way. Now, there are some tactics described in that book that aren't, they're borderline ethical. But overall, extremely just fascinating read. Fascinating, and you'll learn a whole lot just reading what Cialdini writes about, because he did a great job of summarizing everything you need to know in order to become an influencer. I wouldn't say that's the only book on influencing that you gotta read. There's plenty of other books, like The True Believer, for example. However, it is a great start if you've never influenced before, and if you really have an issue with getting other people to do as you want them to do. By the way, this includes parents, right? I mean, there's one concept that Robert Cialdini talks about in that book, scarcity, which works really great on kids. Like that, the fear of losing out, the fear of missing out is just, I used it so many times that it's just, it's just automatic now. And I often use it to convince my daughter to do what I feel is right. So anyway, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend Influence. Now, the next one is No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs by Dan Kennedy. Now, as a disclaimer, okay, I always tell this, but maybe you're brand new to this show. I'm a Dan Kennedy fanboy. Anything with Dan Kennedy's name on it, get it. I don't care if he published it in the 70s. Get it anyway. Okay, Dan Kennedy has been a tremendous influence on my success. I really hope to meet him one day. And, this guy knows what he's talking about. Trust me. Anything that he says is 90% of things he says are true for me in my business and in my day-to-day life. So No BS Time Management, the reason I decided to include it in the 7 books that'll make you millions is quite simply because if you don't know how to manage your time, if you allow other people to manage it for you, right? If you allow the time to manage itself perhaps and let things just fall as they are, you will never become truly successful or truly rich, because time is the only fleeting resource we always are short on. And in order to maximize your earnings, you have to maximize the output of your hours. So, JR, for example, JR, there's only one thing, by the way, that I admire. Just one. Okay.
Well,
just one. Yeah. Everything else you suck at. But if there's one thing that I admire in you, man, is your ability to get lots of work done in a short period of time. I was never this, I'm still not there. That's what I want to say. Like, I'm pretty good with my time. I get accomplished a lot. Okay, in the last 8 years, I accomplished more than most people accomplished in their lifetime. Yet, I feel there's the next level, and you're really, really good at time management. So perhaps you could recommend a couple more books on this.
I got to tell you, that book that you just mentioned from Dan Kennedy was one of my biggest influences with my time management, because Dan is a master at that. You can't even get to him. You have to fax him to talk to him, and he's got layers insulating him. That book really inspired me to be a real asshole about my time.
Yeah. And you gotta be. You gotta be to protect. You gotta be an asshole about your time. You gotta be an asshole about your money. You gotta be an asshole about your relationships. I mean, oftentimes I had to cut out, friends out of my life because I realized how much time they sucked and how very little value they brought into my life. That's an asshole thing to do. But I had to do it. I had to put myself and my interest in my family first. That's as simple as that. Because let's face it, we are all going to die. And I want to spend my life the way I see is the right way to do it. So, last but not least, and again, remember, these are the 7 books I chose for this episode, but there's plenty more you could read. The last but not least is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And this is a book for anyone who procrastinates in any way, about anything. Okay, if you find yourself not being able to start a new project or to complete a new project or to do anything that might make you successful, that something, maybe you keep putting something off, maybe you keep, fearing, like whatever that procrastination is, read The War of Art and you will beat it. You will not procrastinate about shit anymore. That book is amazing. It's written, by the way, it's written by the guy who wrote the story or the novel of Bagger Vance. There's a movie with Matt Damon, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the guy who wrote it, and the book is just tremendous. If you're procrastinating about anything, just make sure you read it. So that's my list for today.
Good stuff, Igor. Very good list. And I'm actually going to go back and read the time man. You've encouraged me to even take it up a level. I'm going to go back and read a couple of these again. But what do you have coming up for us next time?
Next time, I decided to do something I've never done before and invite a guest I've already hosted on the show, someone whose episode is one of the highest in the rankings of all time for our show. That's John Lavinia. And we decided to do another episode, and this time about how to motivate, inspire, and recruit when you're just starting out. So in other words, about how to influence other people, how to generate a following, how to get them to know, like, and trust you when you have zero authority and zero real-world experience.
Man, that is going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. So that's a wrap for another edition of List Building Lifestyle. We'll be back with you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.